Good morning, Tuesday, April the 25th. I'm not
Uh-huh.
really sure where April went, but that is just like a little bit of crazy making place. A great crazy making place, but it's awesome. I want to share with you. I did a post last night on Facebook actually about some of the beliefs that I found myself having to move through and was experiencing several years ago. It was probably 5 years ago. I was working on beliefs. And the question that was asked of me actually was, what did I believe that could be, or beliefs um, that could be standing in my way? Thoughts, beliefs, opinions that might be standing in my way. And to just like kind of let them all rip, even if they felt like there was some sort of common theme to it. So to not like, oh, that's the I'm not enough showing up, just to like write everything down. And so I ended up in that one particular exercise, and I do it quite often. It's one of my kind of go-to places if I'm, if I am feeling stuck. I will immediately go into, okay, what do I think is kind of stopping me, or what do I believe might be in my way? And so I came up with, I don't know, a handful. So here was where I was at the time. So procrastination of tasks, not managing my activities, not making time for exercise, fear of intimacy. Who am I to be this successful? The question, can I do this? I might be taken advantage of. Um, I don't like to feel deprived of food. So I was going through that at that time. It's hard. Things are hard. I don't have what it takes. So I was feeling imposter syndrome. I don't know enough. At that time, I didn't know my purpose. I don't have time to do all the things I want. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. There was fear. And then there was fear around relationship as well. And so we can utilize our feelings, our emotions, our beliefs as a tool to propel us forward if we're willing to be radically honest with how we feel in the moment of time. So once I kind of wrote all those down, then if we also accept the premise that a belief is simply just a decision with evidence, we can come up and create a new belief. And then from that new belief, we can create an affirmation and a gratitude statement. And then we can work on the yeah buts. And thank you so much for the photo of the yeah but photo. It was awesome. Anne sent me a photo. It's toilet paper. And the yeah buts. I loved it. It was awesome. Awesome. And so we can take a look at our yeah buts then and focus on what the yeah but is, not spending time in the feeling of the yeah but in an awareness of, oh, I have this yeah but and I have an opportunity to dissolve it, right? So if we we have to accept some of the premises of a belief is just a decision, right? To accept that first and foremost. And then the next decision of really having this opportunity of making this a new decision, right? And so welcome everyone to the call. It's great to see you all here. And so why this is important is we can look at the possibility of what's stopping us. So I'll go back to some of the things that I wrote was procrastination of tasks, not managing activities, not making time, fear of intimacy, all of those things. And then what we do, all we need to do then really and truly is to take that and write that in the opposite. So here's what I believe about myself and what's happening on the opposite. And here's what I desire for it to, what I desire it for to be. Sorry, I'm just gonna make myself a note. Perfect. So here's some of the what I turned them into, right? And so this was the opposite for me. I have all the tools, the intelligent, and the will and desire to create success. Every day and in every way, my imagination gets stronger and stronger. Every day and in every way, I discover more about my purpose and I live it. I am enough always and in all ways. I'm smart enough to learn how to manage everything. I'm smart enough and I'm smart enough to do it. I have an amazing relationship with Rob, and the lessons he provides me with are providing joy and ecstasy. They are painless. So at that time, Rob and I were going through some stuff, and it was a very painful part of my relationship with him. And I wanted to be in relationship with him, and I wanted to be painless. Right? I was happy to receive the opportunities of the learnings, and I wanted it to be pain-free. Right? I was like, I'm done being in pain. Right? It's okay to make a mistake. It's okay if my tasks don't end up with the results that I desire. Do it anyway. So I could go on and on. It's like 3.5 pages, right, of what I did. So basically what I did was I took what I was experiencing and I then created an affirmation or a positive statement around of what I wanted to experience. I made them, as I said, into beliefs and affirmations or affirmations. And then from there, I turned them into gratitude statements, right? So a gratitude statement would be basically, I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm smart enough, right? I am enough always and in all ways. So same statement, but turned into a gratitude statement. And I read these twice a day for months and months and months. So as I found this in my journal, what I noticed was there's still some that I'm still experiencing the stickiness of, right, the yeah buts. So I'll bring those back forward into, my fold now again, and bring it forward and do these again. So it's repetition, right? So the reminder of the repetition isn't so that God hears us, like in the sense of, right, we're reminding God. No, we're reminding our subconscious. We're talking to ourselves. And the voice that has the most influence on us is our voice. So the voice that has the most influence is your voice. And so if someone is saying something to you, right, you can have the opportunity to not accept it, right? You can be in awareness of that that's their perception, even if it's great information for you to move forward, but you can also not accept it. And in your head, or if you feel like saying it out loud, I guess, you could just like delete. I don't accept that. I'm going to delete that. And so you can move into that space and place where you can delete it. You don't have to accept it. And so I don't say it out loud. Afterwards, I'll say it out loud. So I don't say it to the person, who's I'm speaking with. I don't delete them, right? But I'm just like, but in my head, I'm like, I don't accept this. You're like, this is your opinion and I don't accept this. And then I literally in my head say delete, 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 right? So for me, that's really, really important information, especially when people say things like, I don't mean for this to be offensive. I love that statement because I'm like, then you probably should just shut up. Like that's my inside voice. If you don't mean to be offensive, then why are you having an opinion on this thing? If you think I might be offended, then there's why share, right? Like it's like, and so and that's my family. I don't mean to be offensive, Ranchelle. So the last time my sister said that, I said to her, well, then you probably shouldn't share what you're going to share. And she was like, pardon me. I'm like, no, seriously, if you think that I might be offended, then you probably shouldn't share. I said, chances are I'm not going to be offended because I don't get offended by my family any longer. I said, so you can share anything that you want. And also just be an awareness of the consequences to sharing things that you think that might be offended. So if you are going to share something with me with the expectation that I'm just going to accept what you say and not say anything back, then then you need to just be in awareness of, I might not just take what you dish out. And so share away and be in awareness of, I might actually share my opinion with you. So that's up to you. So there's new relationships can be established, new boundaries can be established. And so for me, when my family starts with, I don't mean this to be offensive, I'm no longer in a heightened state of awareness. I no longer move into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, but I am in awareness. So I have my delete button ready, right? I don't have to accept it. So they go into their, like, whatever their belief is, and I can go, that you have that opinion, that's cool. And I no longer accept that. So then I, ingest, delete. And when I'm driving home, I'm like, I reject that statement, right? If it's a statement that I feel like I need to reject. So we have opportunity before us to accept the beliefs that were passed on through generations, right? And or we can make the decision that we're going to reject and not accept those particular ones, and decide from there what that might look like, which is a very, very different feeling. It's a very empowering feeling, right? And so lots of times boundaries comes up, people are talking a lot about boundaries and the importance of boundaries. And I have a bit of a different spin on boundaries. I think absolutely boundaries are important for each one of us. And we can make a statement of creating a boundary and letting somebody know in our life that that's a boundary for us. But for us to have an expectation that they're going to follow said boundary, I think is a little bit of bullshit, right? So this is just my own personal opinion. And as always, take what you like and leave the rest. But here's why. There's an incredible saying in the 12-step program, which is, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And so for me, what that means is I can have a boundary. I can tell my people, my loves, that this is my boundary. But if I have an expectation that they're going to follow the boundary and they don't, then who's most affected by that? I am. So yes, it's important to have a boundary for me to be clear what my boundaries are, but I don't believe in announcing the boundaries to everybody, because I don't necessarily think that people always have the capacity or capability or the desire to follow my boundary. It's my boundary, right? I've shared this kind of analogy before, so I'm aging myself, but when I was growing up, there was a show called WKRP in Cincinnati, and Les Nessman had his office, right? Remember? And he put the tape there. So that was his boundary, right? And they were always like not, treating his boundaries, and, and he would be offended. That's how I see boundaries. Like, I'm going to put my tape over here. It's imaginary. And you have to knock on the door, and that may or may not happen. Right. So for me, yes, I have a boundary, not for anybody else, but I have a boundary for me. Right. And with an expectation that people may or may not follow said boundary. And that gives me the opportunity for growth. So if someone says something or does something that crosses the boundary, then I can decide, am I offended? How will I communicate? Will I even communicate that they've crossed a boundary? Are they crossing it on purpose? I don't think people cross it on purpose. I think it's just, I think it's not that people don't give a shit. That's what I was going to say. People don't give a shit. It's not that they don't give a shit. I think it's just that they don't know how to not cross boundaries. It's part of their makeup at that particular time. Right now, again, that might be a very unpopular opinion, but my role here isn't necessarily to give you the same opinions of everybody else, but to show you a different way of looking at things. Take it or leave it. So if we go back into this, these two pieces of, we have a belief. It's often passed on from generation to generation. So the first opportunity we have is that actually like my belief? Do I believe that? Or is that something that my parents believed, or my grandparents believed, or my great grandparents believe? And is there any room for movement? Right? It's, like my my heritage is my grandfather is German. He moved from Germany. His family moved from Germany to the US and then migrated up to Alberta, and they farmed. That's when they were giving out land, right? And came up to Alberta and farmed. And so my grandfather had very strict rules and regulations about who my father got to, what heritages that my father got to hang out with, right? So he was German, so you can't hang out with the Polish, and you can't hang out with the Ukrainian. You can hang out with, right, Canadians or Germans. And so, you know, my dad grew up in a very like, I don't believe in that, right? So when I was growing up, I didn't have the prejudices that my grandfather had, right? My dad recognized that that didn't feel great for him, right? And so I grew up in that particular environment, but my cousins don't have the same, didn't have their fathers, right, had more of a sense of that was right, that was the truth. So they had to be deconditioned or deprogrammed on what it was like for different prejudices. But there's lots of things like, so that's a you know, that's a huge one, but it could be even things like a belief that supper has to be at 6 o'clock at night. Like it can be something like so minor, right? Or your biggest meal has to be whatever. Like it's all of these little nuances, these things that we grew up with that are so insidious that we might not even know that they're there. Right. So as we get to explore what that looks like, we can make these decisions. Is this my belief, or does this belong, you know, to my parents, to my grandparents? Is this moving me forward in my life, or is this actually hindering my spiritual growth, my personal growth, my business? Right? Like my mom and dad believe that the only way that you're successful is if you work hard and you sacrifice. You make lots of sacrifices, right? That money is hard to come by. My mom believed money was hard to come by. My dad was like, money is everywhere. My dad grew up wealthy. My mom grew up poor. Right. So then what happens to the child who has both of those come in? Confusion, right? And what happens to mine that's confused? Nothing. It would just stay in confusion, right? Without clarity, there's an inability to move forward. So every paradigm, every value that you have this opportunity to go, does that actually work for me? And if it did work for me, does it still work for me? Right? Like money is evil. Money doesn't grow on trees. Men suck. Right? There's a lot of women who believe that men are just out there to take advantage of you, or that wealthy people get wealthy and on the backs of people. Like, right, that corporations are dirty, that insurance people are this. Like there is a lot of, just think about all of the things on a regular basis that you hear people say. Right? And where do you fit and fall into that? So going back to bringing back into this point of the strongest voice is your voice. So if we could, for a moment, if you can accept that the simplicity of following the universal laws of gratitude, right? And having your affirmations, so that's the law of attraction, right? The law of vibrations in there as well. And the simplicity of having those two things. And if you speak them out loud, your voice has a vibration, and then you hear them. So you can write them out and you see them. If you say them internally, you feel them. If you say it out loud, you also feel them, but you hear them, and your voice has a vibration. And the most important voice is yours. So that's why when people talk about affirmations or your gratitude statements that they say it out loud. They may not share with you why, but that's why. So it becomes much easier to embody the work versus just reading the work. So it's one thing to like, oh yeah, I should say affirmations and then do it for a week and then you forget about it, which happens often, right? Because it's something that we're not embodying it, right? Once you start to embody the work, it just becomes a natural part of your day. right? When I first started, I set alarms to remind me to do it, right? And I used to have on my water bottles different affirmations, right? So there's I'm not sure if you've all heard of the Dr. Emoto water study, where he put different words on his. It's an actual study where he put different words on petri dishes. So there's water, pardon me, let me get this straight. Water, and they put different words on top of the petri dishes. So they would put love, abundance, prosperity, hate. They would take different people. They would have had Hitler on there. They had someone else on there. And then they would look at the crystals of that were formed, like, and you could see the difference of so the things with love and abundance had these amazing and beautiful crystals, and words like hate or Hitler or other words had looked completely different, looked angry, right? Were fractured. So words have an energy to it. Words are important. So another way you can embody the work is you can have words of affirmation written on your water bottle, right? And so when I first started, I would have love and an abundance on my water bottle. So every time I would pick up my water bottle, I would see the word love. That would trigger for me to say a few affirmations, right? I am love, I am loved, I'm loving, I'm lovable. So that was the one that because love was a really hard one for me, right? So I would just say that, right? I'm so happy and grateful now that I am loved, I am loving, I am lovable, right? So we can develop these habits. When you develop a habit, you learn to embody it. And so when you learn to embody things, it's like embodying. So what would love feel like for you? What does being loved feel like for you? How do you embody love? How do you embody the works that we're doing? And so even I can tie this into business, what kind of relationship do you have with your business? Right? Are you loving your business? Do you love all the portions of your business? Do you love sales? Do you love marketing? Do you love Facebook? Do you love LinkedIn? Do you love Instagram? Do you love TikTok? Right? And and I have people say, well, I tolerate, right? I tolerate Facebook. And I'm like, I don't know about you, but I've had people in my life where I tolerated, and that's not fun. Right? Like for me, toleration's like that is not a great energetic word for me. Now that might mean something different for you. So I was like, how do I take a relationship from toleration into acceptance? Right? How do you move from toleration to acceptance? What has to shift within me? Not how does the person need to change, but what has to shift within me to move it into acceptance? And then that can open up a whole can of worms, because what behaviors are you willing to accept? And let's go one step deeper. Is it really about accepting the behavior or accepting the divine within the human being? Because you can accept the divine within the human being and not accept the behavior, right? I don't accept the behavior of my ex-husband, right? What he did was poopy. Not important what he did, right? It sucked. And I accept the divine within him, right? He was in my life for a very specific purpose. So there's that fine, it's a fine line, accepting the behavior or accepting the divine, the wholeness, the oneness of our connection, because we're all connected. Right? And what has this got to do with business? Everything. Right? Are you tolerating Facebook? Are you tolerating something, or can you move into the acceptance of the divinity? Right? And if you think that, so I have people who said, well, if I think Facebook is evil, and then they're using Facebook, and they're like, then don't play in Facebook. If you think Facebook is evil, then don't do Facebook, right? Well, everyone's there. Well, but then you're playing with evil, like, right? So that's how important our beliefs are. Okay? So if you want to play with evil, then there really is truly no judgment in that. If you think that Facebook is evil and you're playing in the world of evil, cool. And how is that affecting your life and your business? If you think that Facebook is out to get you, right, that their algorithms are there to screw you over, then how is that affecting your business, right? Or can you, accept that Facebook, as it has an energy, and I use Facebook lots because I hear people talk lots about Facebook, right? But Facebook has an energy to it. And what's the energy of it, right? And how can you infuse? So for me, how can I infuse divine love into Facebook, right? How can I, because Facebook for a while, when it first started, Facebook was all about community and connection. And then it along the way, it felt like the energy of Facebook changed. And so I wasn't sure I wanted to play on Facebook. And then I started to see Facebook as a small young child that was wounded and angry and having temper tantrums and just looking for attention. So what did I used to do with my children who used to do that way? I used to just sit with them and love them up and tell them how incredibly awesome they were and how can I support them in their, in their whatever they were experiencing. So if they're having a temper tantrum, I called it, how can I support you and you having a temper tantrum, right? And that's how I treat Facebook. How can I support you? You have an agenda, right? How can I support you in the divine part of the agenda, not necessarily in any other part of your agenda, right? Because I want to use Facebook as a platform to share my message, right? So we can take a look at all of the things, everything is always connected, right? And decide, what do we want to believe about Facebook? Some people believe that Facebook is evil, that there's a negative agenda to it, and it's full of X, Y, and Z. And then, but they're on Facebook and complaining. So I'm like, wait a minute. If you want to use Facebook, then how do you create a relationship? And I'm sure all of you have relationships in your life that maybe are more difficult to love or to manage, to maneuver. And I'm not talking about manage from manipulation perspective, but from an impact and influence perspective. So that for me, that's what Facebook is. Facebook's kind of like my family. Truly, right? Not really sure I believe everything, right? Has their own opinion, don't necessarily believe in everything that they believe, and I love my family, and I'm willing to work with my family and accept my family, not accept their behavior, but accept my family for where they're at and who they are, right? And so coming from that perspective, so yeah, lots of extremely random thoughts today. There's no linear, right? I don't think there's much linear today, but I had all of these pieces that that I was meant to share with you, right? And there's one more. Hang on, there's one more message. Whenever you don't feel good, that's a very broad statement. But whenever you don't feel good, remind yourself that that's the lie. You're buying into a lie. We are meant to, this is tricky. Hang on. English, please. Okay. Thanks, everyone. So whenever you don't feel good, that's a lie. Don't buy into the lie, right? And it's not that every day is perfect, right? So it's not about that. But when you don't feel good, there's something that's you're being shown isn't the truth of who you are. So it's not about fake happy, but it's like, oh, I'm noticing that. And then I'm noticing that I'm feeling, and whatever you're feeling, your emotion, the limiting belief. And all you need to say is that's the lie. The truth is, and then go into the truth of who you are, right? So if I was in comparison, right? and I wasn't feeling good, then I would say that's the lie. The lie is I'm not meant to compare. The lie is I am good enough, right? The lie, that's the truth, right? The truth is, pardon me, I am good enough. The truth is there's no need for me to compare. The truth is we're all on our own journey. The truth, and I would just go into the random speaking what my truth is at that time. And my truth will be different than your truth. But the message today is really that you're not meant to be in despair. You're not meant to be in pain, right? And it's only when we're in despair, where we're in pain, when we're not happy, it's simply a message for you that you're not in your truth. So go back to your truth. And it's very clear, your truth, not the truth of others, but your truth. What is your truth? And to be really clear about what your truth is. And I think that's it. I think that's the last message for the day. Okay. Yes. And I'm just going to stop the recording.